The Legend of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Part 1, Chapter 44, Factory. Written and performed by Joseph Chambers and based on the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle comic books created by Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird. "Are you aware of the Pinewood Estate?" Donatello asked. "Do you mean the one opposite my school that I get the feeling I will shortly be walking to, despite my 20-minute walk back here in the first place?" she asked bitterly. Michelangelo gave her an awkward thumbs up, and the 5 children began to scale the rough and grimy brickwork of April's apartment building, careful to dodge windows so as not to risk people seeing them. They ran the distance to the warehouse in Pinewood Estate via the roofs, once again letting April try to run alongside them, but proving she was still far too slow. "Just ride on my back again this time. I'll get Dad to teach you how to run like a proper ninja soon," Donatello said. So together they journeyed for another 5 minutes full pelt, and April was very impressed with their agility and stamina, although she got the impression this was down to their mutation, as their skills on the face of it seemed beyond human capabilities. They finally arrived at the factory in Pinewood Estate, and it struck them immediately how it stood out as generally bland and decaying compared to everything else in the estate. All the surrounding houses and businesses were well kept and colourful, whereas the TCRI factory was grey and covered in weeds and overgrown grass. It was an extremely imposing structure, and if the buildings were sentient, April imagined the other houses in the area would quake at the sight of such a monstrosity amongst them. The factory was not as guarded as the warehouse, possibly so as not to attract unwanted attention from the residents of the surrounding area. "Okay guys, I've been thinking about this carefully, and I believe a 3-way pincer movement may be our best option. If I take the north entrance first, then about 5 minutes later, Mikey and Donnie can take the west entrance, and Raph and April can take the east entrance. Then I should have proved enough of a distraction to let you guys sneak in and find out more about whatever the hell is going on. Meet me after about an hour at the north entrance. Got it? Any questions or comments?" "Why you so pushy?" Raph demanded. "Do we have to follow your plan?" Donnie asked. "What does pincer movement mean?" Mikey quizzed. "I have a bad feeling about this," April commented. The team moved out, and Leonardo attacked the north entrance, swiping aside the metal chain-link fence that surrounded the warehouse perimeter. He then stopped outside the main door and put a small red pill-shaped object, which was a homemade explosive, inside the lock. The inside seemed to glow and the door eased open. Leonardo carefully peeked through the slot and saw the place was packed with workers who in turn were packing boxes. It was 4 o'clock in the afternoon and many people were at work in the factory. Various men and women in red vests, black jeans and grey hard hats wandered around carrying cardboard boxes of various sizes, some in forklift trucks and some in sack barrows. The room also contained large machines that transported various fluids around to be processed or altered at different stations in the factory, or to be taken to a loading bay where they may be exported to other locations. Leonardo carefully crept around the door, hesitant to make a move till he was certain no one was watching. He then, keeping to the walls at all times, and in the shadows where he could, crept behind a giant pile of boxes and jiggled one to see if it brought any attention. The contents rattled far more loudly than he had anticipated, and it clearly had some kind of glass contents that he had most likely broken. This caught the attention of a female worker in her 40s, and she came to inspect the noise. Just as the woman came to peek around the boxes to view the source of the sound, Leonardo swiftly moved out to slide on the front of his shell to underneath a packing shelf. What Leonardo failed to notice was that one of the canisters had cracked and as a result gradually oozed its contents. This would not have been a problem if a dragonfly and a centipede had not been attracted to the bright colours and practically swam in the juices. Like I said, it shouldn't have been a problem, but there you go. At the west entrance, Michelangelo and Donatello waited for 5 minutes, and then Donatello said he was going to make sure they did not get spotted. If I can reroute these wires to give out less output but still receive input, then maybe I can... Blah, 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 get to the good bit, or at least the bit I might understand, Mikey interjected. I could disarm the security system, he exclaimed happily. Donatello then withdrew a collapsible screwdriver from his belt and began to unscrew various screws from a small grey box next to the door. If you get this wrong, you could set everything off and then the whole plan goes boom, Mikey complained. Relax, I'm not going to... Then Donatello realised he had moved the wrong wire. Why hadn't he noticed that? Was he blind or stupid? Then a long, shrill and eardrum-bustingly loud air raid-like siren began. I never thought being right would be such a bummer! Mikey shouted over the storm of noise while shaking his head and covering the sides of his head with his hands. At the north entrance, Leonardo heard the sirens and saw several trained ninja security guards leaving the room and realised one of his brothers must have set off the alarm. Great, thanks guys, reliable as ever. At the east entrance, Raphael and April had noticed that the gates and doors were unlocked during the day, so managed to walk in, but before they got far, blaring sirens and flashing lights filled their senses. You called it! Raph shouted at April over the racket of the alarm. He then began to use a nearby door frame to climb onto a light fitting and hung between this and the door frame, facing downwards. He offered her a hand. You have got to be kidding me! April laughed at the suggestion. Is this a time for jokes? Raph asked her sternly. She then reluctantly chose to join him in this absurd game of hide and seek.